Alrighty, party peoples of the interwebs, Gavin Newsom's incompetence and I dare say gross negligence knows no bounds. Now the executive order he has implemented in order to protect Californians from predatory real estate practices, I think actually makes the problem worse. Viva Fry, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler in my open door home office, and I'm following what's going on in California for very personal reasons. I've got family out there, and it's an abject disaster. I dare say this all results from the criminal negligence of the Gavin Newsom regime. Everyone involved. Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, the mayor of the Los Angeles area. It's not just that it's grotesque incompetence resulting in empty hydrants, empty reservoirs. It doesn't matter. Now they are trying to protect Californians from predatory real estate practices in the wake of the disaster, and Gavin Newsom, don't worry about it. He's on top of it all with an executive order that not only does nothing, I dare say it makes things worse. Now, for those of you who don't know, there was a short video clip going viral with Gavin Newsom talking about his discussions with Governor Green, who is the governor of Hawaii, who you might remember from other such fire disasters as the Lahaina fire disasters. He was talking to Governor Green about how to manage this particular fire crisis, and this is what Gavin Newsom said.
We're dealing with a myriad of issues. I was just talking to Josh Green, the governor of down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties, and the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just weeks.
Now, some people watched that and said, this strikes me as being very suspicious, very concerning. Governor Newsom talking with Governor Green, two failed governors responsible for one of the most grotesque disasters in their respective states' histories, talking about how land developers are going to come in and Gavin Newsom is going to meet with his lawyers to address how to deal with that. And some people read into that in terms of how to deal with that the government was going to work with developers to basically facilitate the expropriation of the destroyed land for development purposes. And Vinny Oshana on the Patrick Bet-David podcast had this to say about it.
Where Newsom is talking about calling Josh Green, the Maui fires, okay, they exposed the same stuff that's happening right now. Government failure, delayed response, ignored warnings, and all these priorities. He says something about reimagining California where he calls the Maui guy, and this is what bothers me, Tom, those people that you're talking about now that have nothing, okay, that the house was worth, let's say, $10 million in regard to insurance. Now, if somebody comes and wants to buy up the land, Tom, they can offer them way less and say, listen, everything's gone. You didn't have the right insurance. We're going to give you this much money cash, Tom. Get this, go about your business. Am I right?
People that had their house paid off.
Yes.
That, for some of them that don't have the resources and were underinsured, that is their only choice.
Jeez.
To sell the land to tomorrow's developer and go somewhere.
So when he says this, Pat, isn't this a worrisome thing where he says he called him, and you mind if
Okay, play this clip, Rob?
We're dealing with a myriad of issues. I was just talking to Josh Green, the governor down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties, and the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just weeks.
Now, Vinny, you should be proud because Governor Newsom actually quote tweeted and said, this is a lie. I actually just signed an executive order to protect Californians. And then the community notes come in and what? They found us, Marty. I don't know how, but they found us. I'm joking. The Libyans. Okay. The community notes come in and they add to it. Readers might like the following context. Gavin Newsom signed an executive order. And I'm like, let's go see if this executive order actually protects Californians. And I dare say I would rate that community note as more or less useless. Actually, I should be fair. It's kind of useful because I wanted to go read that executive order that Gavin Newsom in his wonderful leadership just implemented. Let's go ahead and read that executive order. Oh my goodness, when you read these things, you will understand why people leave the practice of law, why legal documents need to be drafted in a way that is absolutely unhuman so that lawyers can retain their monopoly of the practice. You get a whole bunch of what they call a preamble, whereas, and then you get after a full page of the whereases into the two aspects of this executive order, only one of which is really relevant. Let's walk through it and I will highlight the important parts, shall we? Executive Department, State of California. Executive Order N-7-25. Whereas on January 7, 2025, I proclaimed a state of emergency to exist in Los Angeles and Ventura counties due to fire and windstorm conditions that have now caused multiple fires, including the Palisades, Eaton, Hearst, Lydia, Sunset, and Woodley fires. And whereas these fires have devastated communities across the greater Los Angeles area and have collectively burned over 40,000 12,300 acres, destroying or damaging more than 12,300 structures, including homes, small businesses, and places of worship, with initial estimates placing this disaster among the most destructive in California history. In other words, Gavin Newsom, who has prioritized DEI, objectively insane woke policies, who has neglected the state entirely, who has left reservoirs empty, fire hydrants empty, stolen, damaged in some cases, is now saying, yeah, under my watch, we've had probably the worst disaster in California state history. Congratulations, Gavin Newsom, you've earned this one. But let's get to the highlighted passage, which I think is the most important of the preamble whereases. Whereas I have personally heard firsthand from homeowners, faith leaders, and business property owners who, while these fires still burn, received unsolicited offers to purchase their property, which in many instances represent their life savings and family legacies, for amounts far less than fair market value prior to this emergency. And whereas all those impacted by these fires, and especially property owners who have lost their family home or business, or even their entire neighborhood, may be traumatized, uncertain, and especially vulnerable to exploitive practices and unscrupulous individuals who seek to profit from this disaster. After people's entire properties, businesses, and in some instances legacies have had all of their earthly belongings destroyed, after having had their insurance policies canceled because the insurance policies couldn't increase premiums sufficiently in the state without state authorization, so they just pulled coverage. After their properties burned because the fire hydrants didn't have water because some fire hydrants were damaged, others were stolen for the price of metal, the reservoir was literally empty, a 117 million gallon St. Inez reservoir empty. After their properties burned to the ground as a result of Gavin Newsom's negligence, criminal negligence in my humble opinion, Gavin Newsom is now protecting these poor vulnerable people from the further consequences of his criminal negligence. And how does he do it? With an executive order that is going to prohibit the unsolicited offer to buy the properties for less than their market value as of the day before the fire. Let's read how this is worded. It is hereby ordered that 1. Making any unsolicited offer to an owner of real property located in the areas encompassed by, and we go in the zip codes, the affected areas, to purchase or otherwise acquire any interest in the real property for an amount less than the fair market value of the property or interest in the property on January 6, 2025 is prohibited for 3 months from the date of this order. Number 2, the Department of Real Estate, in consultation with other agencies and departments as appropriate, shall expeditiously determine the nature and scope of any unlawful, unfair, or fraudulent practices employed by any individual or entity seeking to take advantage of property owners in the wake of this emergency, ... You can read the rest of that on your own. So this executive order, in all of its wisdom and grace, prohibits the unsolicited offer to purchase the property affected by the fire for less than market value as of January 6, 2025 for a period of 3 months. It would seem that they could go out and solicit offers to buy the properties so long as those offers are not coming in unsolicited from developers. This doesn't seem like it's doing anything other than restricting to a certain hand-select group of developers who can come in and snatch up these properties on the cheap. And not just that it goes on for 3 months while they have to continue to make payments on properties that were probably not insured, such that in 3 months they are in even more dire financial straits, so that in 3 months all these developers have to do is wait the 3-month period out, and then they can go in and snatch them up for even cheaper because they've gotten 3 months further into the financial hole. So yeah, this is one hell of a useless executive order that does absolutely nothing except potentially limit the people who can come in and snatch up those properties to a select group of developers. They just need to wait out the 3 months while all of these property owners continue to assume certain costs and certain financial burdens as relates to the properties. All right, that's very nice. You've given them a 3-month reprieve to get further into a financial hole so that in 3 months, these developers who can wait the 3 months can then come in and snatch up the properties. But the biggest issue here actually is not even in how it potentially restricts or at least suspends the ability of real estate developers to come in and buy up the land. But the biggest issue here, and the biggest red flag as far as I'm concerned, is okay, fine. Property owners can, I guess, go out and solicit their own offers, as they should be within their rights to do with their own property. The only problem now is Lord knows what it's worth, and it might not be worth very much. The biggest issue here is that you read the last paragraph of this executive order and you see who specifically is not bound by this executive order. This order is not intended to and does not create any rights or benefits, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity, against the state of California, its agencies, departments, entities, officers, employees, or any other person. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the great seal of the state of California to be affixed this 14th day of January 2025. Gavin Newsom, Governor of California, criminally negligent nincompoop. So this executive order does not limit the powers of the state to come in and claim the land by way of eminent domain. So it does nothing really of substance substance other than make people think that they're protected somehow for the next 3 months as a result of what Gavin Newsom has done. What's going to happen here? Probably what happens in a lot of these other similar circumstances. The government's going to come in and say, well, this land is pretty destroyed. It's pretty contaminated. We might have to snatch that from you by way of eminent domain, but here's your fair market value for the rubble that was your property. In the meantime, Gavin Newsom, feigning leadership in the face of his failed leadership, is providing something of a 3-month reprieve. Don't worry, you guys are protected from the nefarious consequences of my incompetence for about 3 months, and then the select developers are going to come in, snatch up that property if you haven't foreclosed on it already. If the government doesn't decide to take it itself, it is layered incompetence. It is not possible to be this bad at your job without being deliberately bad at your job for reasons unknown, but many people have their theories.
Speculators coming in, buying up properties, and the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just weeks.
And by the way, if you like what I do, make sure that you have taken 3 seconds to go down, subscribe, hit notifications, drop a comment in the comment section because it feeds the algorithm. But that is the executive order. It's a whole lot of nothing so that Gavin Newsom can pretend to be leading, can pretend to fact check and say, I'm doing something, I'm protecting you, when in reality people are suffering specifically as a result of what he has and has not done for the state of California. That's the vlog. Get out there, eat healthy, exercise, sunlight, talk to people in real life, and